Today's video is about the possible future changes in Canadian immigration. The Canadian immigration system has greatly delayed and altered due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. Around the world, people have been waiting and worried about their immigration process. Between October 2020 and May 21, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration agreed to study the impact of COVID-19 on immigration system. The study focused on application backlogs, processing delays for many streamed and foreign nationals with expired confirmation of permanent residence and other expired documents. As a result, the committee recommended the list of changes in Canadian immigration for the consideration of the House of Commons or the government. For all the details about these possible changes, stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome back to Canadian Charisma. Here you can get all help to apply for Canadian immigration without any lawyer, agent, consultant, which can save you a lot of money. Without a further delay, let's start today's video. The first recommendation is fully digitizing immigration and asylum system. This includes allowing applicants in all streams to submit applications electronically, submit documents and signatures electronically, and follow up with paper documents in the event of application discrepancies. Be interviewed virtually and be issued visas electronically, while still retaining the option for paper application for needed people. Recommendation 2. Issuing a letter with a scannable barcode. The IRCC issue a letter with a scannable barcode for permanent resident visas rather than affixing a visa to physical passport, which will increase the processing speed. Recommendation 3. Increasing settlement funding for digital technology. That IRCC increase funding to settlement services to promote digital literacy and the availability of digital tools. So again, they are promoting more going electronically rather than paper applications. Recommendation 4. Recognizing expired permanent resident cards. The IRCC implement measures that enable permanent residents with expired permanent resident cards whose card renewal has been impacted by COVID-19 processing complications to be allowed to return to Canada for the during of the pandemic period. Recommendation 5. Extending the validity of medical exams. The IRCC extend the validity of medical exams beyond a year and undertake concurrent processing of biometrics, medicals, and criminality and security checks. Recommendation 6. Obtaining medical exams in Canada under exceptional circumstances. The IRCC implement a temporary public policy allowing sponsored spouses with no access to a panel physician and medical exam in their own country to obtain the exam in Canada on a visitor visa during pandemic conditions. Recommendation 7. Funding visa application center staff in Francophone Africa. The countries come under Francophone Africa are French-speaking countries, and Canada always encourages French-speaking people. The IRCC encourages and fund visa application centers in Francophone Africa to increase staffing to accelerate the processing of student biometrics and permits. Recommendation 8. Prioritizing family reunification processing for protected persons. The IRCC prioritizes the processing of family reunification applications where family members are classified as protected person. So who are the protected person? A person who has reason to fear persecution in his or her country of origin due to race, religion, nationality, membership in a social group, or a political opinion can be designated as a protected person. Recommendation 9. Adding resources to process temporary resident extensions. That IRCC add resources to speed up the processing of extension applications for temporary residence status. Recommendation 10. Disaggregating processing and application data. The IRCC collect and publish expanded anonymized processing and application data for all immigration streams disaggregated by applicant, race, gender, religion, age, source country, and parental status, inclusive of data not currently collected by IRCC. Recommendation 11. Increasing access to international student helpline. That IRCC provide improved service to students and recruitment officers through a dedicated international student helpline with officers who are appropriately trained and available. Recommendation 12. Tracking applications in real time. That IRCC upgrade information technology infrastructure to make all applications transparent and trackable in real time to provide a realistic processing time for individuals' applications and to prioritize the restoring of full application processing standards. Recommendation 13. Strengthening communication protocols. That IRCC continue to approve the negotiation and articulation of clear protocols and policies, communication among IRCC, visa offices, airlines, provincial and territorial governments and designated learning institutes. Recommendation 14. Releasing to applicants a full justification of refusals. That IRCC direct visa officers to release the applicants the full record of any information and the full reason for the refusal of their application. So right now what happens when the application get refused, they don't provide the satisfied reason for the refusal. So an individual need to request that reason and then they will get. So to fast this process, the committee is recommending this option. Recommendation 15. Creating an immigration ombudsperson. That the Government of Canada introduce legislation to create an immigration ombudsperson to oversee immigration, refugee and citizenship Canada and to receive complaints. What is an ombudsperson? An ombudsman is an official usually appointed by the government who investigates complaints against any department, in this case IRCC, and attempts to resolve the conflicts and concerns. Recommendation 16. Issuing temporary resident visas to spousal sponsorship applicants. That IRCC instructs visa officers to issue temporary resident visa to spousal sponsorship applicants, making section 179B of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations inapplicable if there are no concerns of inadmissibility. Recommendation 17. Creating a super visa for applicants in a spousal sponsorship. That IRCC develop a super visa with conditions similar to that of the parent and grandparent super visa that would allow spouse multiple entries into Canada while their sponsorship application is being processed. So if you are not aware what is super visa is also a visitor visa with multiple entries, but in this case you are allowed to stay 2 years at a time on your entry. So you no need to renew every 3 or 6 months for super visa. Recommendation 18. Building compassion into the system and communicating mistakes. That during the COVID-19 period, IRCC contact applicants to correct mistakes, including missing documents, and provide applicants with the sufficient opportunity to respond before returning the entire file, and that file regain their place in the queue if resubmitted to the same stream. Recommendation 19. Locking in age of dependence. That IRCC adopt the policy that is used in refugee applications and lock in the age of all dependent children as of 1st March 2020 until permanent resident applications are processed, and there is no further risk that these dependents may be aged out because of processing backlogs due to COVID-19. Recommendation 20. Prioritizing the processing of adoption cases. That IRCC put additional resources to address the backlog of international adoption cases and that adoption application be treated as a priority for expedited processing, means more quickly processing. Recommendation 24. Developing guidelines for adoptive children with urgent medical needs. That IRCC develop clear rules and guidelines to ensure cases involving the urgent medical needs of adoptive children are expedited. Recommendation 22. Creating a weighted parent and grandparent sponsorship stream. That IRCC create a parent or grandparent sponsorship stream that properly weighs previous applications and looks to address the current backlog, and that there be a pre-screening of files. Recommendation 23. Changing financial requirements for parent and grandparent sponsorship. That IRCC allow the income requirements for the parent and grandparent sponsorship program to be the minimum necessary income equal to the low income cutoff established by the Statistics Canada for the years impacted by economic consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, conducting a yearly review to determine whether to extend allowing the minimum necessary income to be equivalent to the low income cutoff, all while respecting Quebec jurisdictions. Recommendation 24, ensure safe in-person learning for international students. That IRCC and the Canada Border Services Agency continue to support international students and designated learning institutes to permit international students to safely enter Canada and study in person. Recommendation 25, reducing administrative requirements for co-op work terms. That IRCC expand the standard conditions of study permits to allow international students to work full-time for an internship or co-op placements that is part of an educational program without the need to complete any additional procedures. Recommendation 26, assessing the need to expand eligibility for federal settlement funding. That IRCC in partnership with provinces and territories assess service needs in order to consider expanding eligibility for federal settlement support in order to include temporary residents on study or work permits. Recommendation 27, examine acceptance rates for international students. That IRCC examine acceptance rates for international students whose applications are processed in Africa, particularly Francophone Africa, and develop a plan to address the lower acceptance rates for students from these regions compared to other source countries such as Pakistan. Recommendation 28, issuing the authorization letter automatically. That IRCC issues authorization letter automatically to foreign nationals who have had their confirmation of permanent residence and permanent resident visa expire during the pandemic period, and that the need to renew expired supporting documents be waived for the duration of pandemic. Recommendation 29, prioritizing the issuing of the standard acknowledgement of receipt. That IRCC prioritize issuing the usual acknowledgement of receipt. What is this? When you submit your application to IRCC and they start the processing on your application, that time they issue a acknowledgement of receipt. Recommendation 30, issuing bridging open work permit in Quebec. That the government grant bridging open work permit to temporary residents who are waiting for permanent residency through Quebec skilled worker program. Recommendation 31, providing work permits for caregivers during COVID-19. That concerning caregivers who do not possess occupation specific work permits, IRCC issue work permits to caregivers without the need for labor market impact assessment during the COVID-19 period. That hours interrupted due to the pandemic be counted towards their qualifying work experience under the pilot programs, and that the age of children be logged for the consideration of qualifying work experience. Recommendation 32, developing a pathway to permanent residence for those performing essential work. That IRCC develop a clear pathway for permanent residence for workers performing essential work during the pandemic period. Recommendation 33, permitting the entry of asylum seekers. That IRCC and the Canada Border Services Agency, where possible in partnership with all relevant resettlement partners including the International Organization for Migration and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, permit refugees and asylum seekers to enter Canada regardless of their country of origin or nationality, while requiring them to comply with all public health requirements. Recommendation 34, using the Guardian Angel program as a model. The IRCC developed programs similar to Guardian Angel program, especially consider the inclusion of foreign workers who contributed during the COVID-19 pandemic regardless of status. So what was the Guardian Angel program? In Guardian Angel program, asylum seekers who have been working in a specific list of healthcare related professions, especially in pandemic, and who had already claimed asylum before March 13, 2020 were allowed to apply for permanent residency in December 2020. Recommendation 35. Creating a more accessible temporary residence options for Hong Kong residents. That in response to the increasingly dangerous situation in Hong Kong, IRCC create an open work permit aimed at Hong Kong foreign nationals with moderate language and educational requirements. Recommendation 36. Creating a 5-year postgraduate work permit. That in response to the increasingly dangerous situation in Hong Kong, IRCC create a 5-year postgraduate work permit aimed at Hong Kong foreign nationals who study or have studied in Canada. Recommendation 37. Creating a Hong Kong extended family reunification stream. That IRCC create a family reunification stream for Hong Kong family members, including extended family members of Canadian citizens and of pro-democracy activists living in Canada. Recommendation 38. Developing a Hong Kong source country asylum stream. That IRCC implement a temporary public policy to address Hong Kong refugee claims and grant asylum to pro-democracy activists within Hong Kong, using initiatives such as Rainbow Railroad as a model in order to discreetly identify and support asylum seekers. These are the recommendations made by the committee to the Government of Canada. So there is a possibility that these can implement shortly in Canadian immigration. If you have any question, please feel free to leave me a comment below or email me on canadiancharisma@yahoo.com or DM me on Instagram. You can find the link in the description below. I will try to answer you as soon as possible. I will be back with more informative videos. Till then, stay positive, stay safe. If you like my videos, please hit the like button. It gives me the motivation to bring more information for you guys. If you haven't subscribed my channel yet, please subscribe it and press the bell icon to get notified. Thanks for watching this video.